And good evening, everybody. Welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. I'm David Burnett, your host for this evening. And I got two fellas ready to chop up the sports world today. Let me introduce Larry Abels, the man, the voice of reason. Larry, how you doing?
I'm good, David. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. And my longtime best friend, Jeffrey Clark, here in Indianapolis, Indiana, the Circle City, the sports capital of the universe. Jeff, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Looking forward to tonight's show.
All right, all right. We're going to start off with an Indiana related topic. Our Indiana University correspondent, Chuck Snowden, is on the road visiting and surveying the landscape of his best friend, Mike Woodson, and the Indiana Hoosiers. The question is, Mike Woodson, who's going to retire at the end of the basketball season, essentially forced out of Indiana University, has taken a lot of heat, particularly here in Indiana. Indianapolis media has been all over him. But Indiana destroyed their arch rival Purdue not long ago, uh, beat them up badly. Matt Painter, the head coach of the Purdue Boilermakers, who also took Purdue to the national championship game last year, is struggling. Purdue is struggling. They're on a losing streak. Why isn't Matt Painter getting the same kind of heat that Mike Woodson is getting? Larry, let me start with you.
I think you should start with people in Indiana because you guys are the ones doing it. But I mean, on the surface, Purdue has a better record than Indiana, and I think the expectations at Indiana probably are a lot higher. Being an outsider from Indiana, when I think of Indiana basketball, I don't think of Purdue. I think about the Hoosiers. So I'm thinking that probably has something to do with it. I think the guy down in North Carolina, Hubert Davis, he's probably in trouble because it's another blue blood team and they're not performing well.
Well, speaking of Hubert Davis, and we'll quickly mention this, he did apparently sign a contract extension through 2029, I believe. That's what was reported. Jeff, your thoughts on Mike Woodson? We both watched him from his infancy at Broad Ripple High School to Indiana to the pros. Is he taking undue heat?
Um, Probably so. I think when you actually look at the records of Indiana and Purdue, first of all, you got to remember. Listen, Painter's been with Purdue for what 20 years.
Yeah.
If you look at the records, I believe Purdue is 19-9 overall this season, 11-6 in the Big Ten, and IU is let's see here. They're in what
16-11 and 7-9 in the Big Ten.
Right. So the numbers aren't that different, but I do think that the expectation of IU basketball is what it is. I think the fact that Painter has had a longer tenure and he has been successful.
We did go to the final game last year.
They went to the final game last year. So I think that although the records aren't that far off, I think Matt Painter is definitely getting, a little bit more play on the fact of what he's done overall at Purdue.
Well, one thing, and Chuck, who's very close to Mike Woodson, obviously, says there have been death threats. And I think there's a racial component that's involved in terms of how Mike Woodson is viewed versus how Matt Painter is viewed. And I think some of it's just unfair. I don't know how much of it has to do with his age, at 66, but his color may be a factor. Larry, do you think so? Is that possible?
Well, I think that it's always going to be some people, and death threats are not, regardless of the reason, it doesn't matter. Death threats, whether it's color or not, death threats are inappropriate under any circumstances.
Absolutely.
It's always going to be some people that have issues with him. But I mean, again, still looking at it on the surface, I look at one team in the Big Ten is 11-6. I look at Indiana 7-9, and a couple of years ago, Indiana had two guys that were drafted, one in the first round and one the guy that plays for Golden State does in the second round. They got some talent there. And I just get the feeling, just again being an outsider, but Indiana seems like one of the blue bloods. And I know in a lot of those schools, they don't talk, it's a higher standard.
Well, one thing, and Jeffrey, I'm sure you can attest to this. In Indiana, Indianapolis, even though Purdue is technically the larger college, they have more students than IU, I believe. This is an Indiana University state, period. Bob Knight built it up. And even before that, Branch McCracken, the coach that led them to a couple of national championships before Bob Knight. The expectations for Indiana are off the charts. What do you think, Jeff?
Hey, they absolutely are. They have been. I liken this to like Kentucky, Louisville. Louisville has a successful program, but Kentucky, University of Kentucky, is king when it comes to basketball in Kentucky. And certainly I think, the comparison to IU and Purdue is pretty much the same. So, again, like I said, Mike Woodson, what has he been coach? 4 years, 5 years?
This is his fourth season at IU.
Fourth season. So, again, Painter's got a 16-year jump start on him as far as resume. So, it could be one thing or another.
I can speak about Georgetown here now. In my view, they haven't been good for years, but people have high expectations for them too. And Patrick Ewing was there, one of the favorite sons that won the NCAA for them. He got run out of here. I mean, I think it happens when people have maybe unrealistic expectations too.
Absolutely. We're still going to stay on an Indiana theme. One of the jewels of the city of Indianapolis is the NFL scouting combine. It's been in the nation's sports capital since 1987, and the combine has started this week. What should we be looking for, Jeff, as we review the combine, not just for the city of Indianapolis, but how important is it for teams to get a sense of what kind of players that they're looking for? What do you think?
Well, I mean, clearly the combine is an opportunity for, coaches and teams to really look and see what's coming out this year. I do think that this year is going to be interesting. I kind of call it a starters draft versus a star draft, if you will. I think, it's going to be interesting to see how those top 3 or top maybe 5 picks, if teams are picking, out of need. I think, Tennessee has the number 1 pick.
Tennessee has the number 1 pick, and they probably need a quarterback.
They've got a number of quarterbacks, obviously, to go with. But again, I think that, in most positions, there's a lot of really talented players in the draft this year. So I think, they're going to be looking at really filling the holes and the actual needs. But like you said, again, Tennessee's in need of a quarterback. You've got a lot of, talented quarterbacks right there at the top. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think, again, fill the needs, don't get caught up in the hype.
Amen. Larry, what do you think?
I always sort of question it. I think it's good for certain players who might not have the national rep that they can show how fast and how strong they are. I always question. I don't really necessarily think this shows football ability, but it does give a team some idea of, how fast people are. Like, I think the fastest guy got drafted by Kansas City last year, and I think the combine obviously helped him. But I think some of the other players, teams got to have the film on them already, actually performing the game. So,
well, one thing that the combine does do, there are interviews that go on and sometimes inappropriate questions asked, but it's a chance for them to eyeball a player, to get a sense this player fit with the culture of our team. will we choose him? One of the questions in this draft is who's going to go, what quarterback is going to go. Right now, the consensus is heading around Cam Ward of the University of Miami and Shedeur Sanders of University of Colorado. And both of them are not highly thought of this year. In other words, I've heard commentators say if it was last year, they might not have been picked in the first round of last year's draft based on how they played. What do you think, Jeff, in terms of Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward?
Well, I kind of feel like Cam Ward is, in the top spot based upon kind of what I'm hearing and seeing and everything. I think with Shedeur, it's going to be interesting to see how the Deion Sanders effect plays into that, with the situation of certain teams that he doesn't want him to go to, certain teams that might get the stamp of approval, and how that may play into that top pick, and where Sanders lands and how soon he's called off the board. So I'm definitely going to be looking at that because I think that's, could prove to be an interesting piece with it.
Larry, your thoughts?
Let's give a shout out to Greg Fenner. I saw him jump in earlier. He's a frequent follower of the show and definitely a friend of the show. It's hard for me to tell this year. I have to defer to the experts. Last year was certainly a quarterback-heavy draft, and so many of them were drafted last year. And, they turned out, most of them had pretty decent seasons. A couple of them had great seasons, one of them in particular here in Washington. But it's hard for me to tell, whether their game actually translates to the NFL. I've been hearing more about Cam, as being a top pick, as being the first quarterback selected. So I kind of feel like, based on what the experts are saying, he'll probably go first.
Let's move it to running backs. Ashton Jeanty from Boise State University, highly touted, 2,000 plus yards rushing this past college football season. Almost won the Heisman Trophy, maybe should have won the Heisman Trophy, could have won it. Running backs have done really well this past year in the NFL, and it looks like the NFL is giving them a lot more respect than they've gotten in the past. Larry, your thoughts on running backs, Ashton Jeanty's future? What do you think?
Well, I can't believe you said that because I think they always get respect. I just don't think they're paid. It'll be interesting. Last year, I don't think any running backs went in the first round. I heard this was a running back heavy draft. And I think back in 2023, it's the guy Robinson that plays for Atlanta, Bijan Robinson, and Gibbs in Detroit probably were the only two that went in the first round. But when I hear this is a running back draft, the first person that drops into my mind is Gentry. He looked good in college. Seemed to play well against everybody he played against. Not sure what the other running backs look like around the country, but I expect him to go fairly high as running backs go.
Jeff, your thoughts?
I would definitely agree with that. I think obviously this year with the success that the running backs had, this year is going to allow more running backs to come off the board, I think, earlier this year. So I personally would be happy to see the running backs, more involved in, with the teams and stuff. So I think it's going to be a good draft for running backs. We'll see how deep, though, they go.
And especially if it's not a quarterback-heavy draft, that might open up some slots for them.
I hope so. And, as someone who played running back in high school and a little bit in college, I have an affinity for the running back position.
Oh, no, I see. David, we value you, man. We value you.
I'm a long way from what I used to be.
It's okay.
I sometimes think about it. I still think about hitting the hole and going all the way. Anyway, hopefully Ashton Jeanty will be respected. Travis Hunter. Now that's who I think could be the number one overall pick. Will he play running wide receiver? Will he play defensive back? Will he play both? Jeff.
That's going to be real interesting. Some of it may depend upon what team he actually gets drafted by. But clearly, what he did in college in terms of being able to play both ways, I don't think that any team would draft him and not play him in some capacity both sides of the ball. I think that he's shown that he can play, major competition. He's dangerous as a wide receiver. He's a shutdown DB. So I think, again, depending upon what team ends up drafting him, I think that they'll at least have packages created for him that you would be able to, take full advantage of his abilities on both sides of the ball.
Larry, how interesting would it be if not Shedeur Sanders, but Travis Hunter got a chance to regularly play both positions? What do you think? How interesting would that be?
I don't think that's possible. I think Jeffrey hit the nail on the head. Number one, it's going to depend on whatever team that drafts them and their greater need, whether it's DB or running back. But I think at this level, you either going to practice with the offense or defense. I expect there are going to be certain situations where you can use them on either side. I kind of expect them to play defensive back, but I expect them, sometimes just like they would do with Champ Bailey or Deion Sanders, find some offensive situations where they can, put him out there and really cause problems for the defense.
Well, I think he's going to get more opportunities on both sides of the ball. I think primarily first position is going to be defensive back, but I think he's going to get 30% of the wide receiver snaps because he's a unique player. And keep in mind, the NFL back in the day, long before even we were born, the old men that we are, two-way players was the thing. Platooning guys was something that happened. I think it was Paul Brown, the creator of the Cleveland Browns, who kind of started platooning at the professional football level.
There's a reason that they stopped that. There's a reason. Players were getting worn out too much.
Right. You know what, Greg? You are absolutely right. I'm stone cold on the pickleball court.
So, David, this is what I think you should do. I mean, the combine's right there in Indianapolis, the sports capital world. Take your butt on down there and show them what you can do.
I'll show them that I can barely get down the steps. That's what I'll show them. All right. And let's say hello to Phyllis. Hey, Phyllis, how are you?
How you doing, Phyllis? Thanks for tuning in.
All right. You know what I like about the combine, and this year I've been down to the combine a couple of times over the years, and what I like to see are the guys running, fastest guys around. What do you think will be the top 40 time? Will anybody get to 4.0 in the 40? I think the record is 4.21. I think that's the all-time combine record. Jeff, you're pretty fast in your day. What do you think?
Wasn't too bad. How long? You said 4.21 is the fastest.
I think that's the all-time combine record.
How long has that record stood? Do you know?
I think it was just last year.
Yeah, I think so. The guy from
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure because I'm not quite sure who some of the fastest guys were this past season. So I don't really have an exact answer on that one there. You got me on that one.
Is anybody going to ever break 4 seconds in the 40, Larry? Do you think that's possible?
Okay, I want to answer your first question. Nobody's going to break it this year. Maybe with the evolution of man, someone may do it, But since it was just set last year, and I think the previous record was set in 2017, I doubt if anybody will get to 4.0 this year.
I'd like to see that. I think it's, it's just, that's the difference. Just that. That's the difference between 4-1 and 4-0.
The previous record was 4.22 and 4.21 broke that. So,
man, it's that fast. Back when I was playing football, the fastest I could run was 4.5. That was pretty fast in the day. That was a standard. Now guys are running 4.1, 4.2. Unbelievable. All right. Little bit about your favorite sport, Larry. Major League Baseball. Spring training has begun. Baseball's experimenting with the electronic umpires. Is that a good idea?
To be clear, it's not my favorite sport. I like
it's
basketball.
Not your favorite sport?
Basketball is my favorite sport.
You were an all-star in baseball.
Yeah, okay, but basketball is my favorite sport. The electronic umpire is, it's hard for me to really see how that's going to work. I'm very curious. I think it's an okay idea. I guess we're striving for consistency with balls and strikes. When I played baseball, I always wanted the ump to be consistent. So I guess the strike zone would be consistent, but it's interesting to me how they're going to be able to measure for different size batters. But modern technology, maybe they could.
Well, they've been working on it in the minor leagues for a couple of years, I believe. Jeff, your thoughts on electronic umpire?
Yeah, I guess from an accuracy standpoint, the technology is driving that. I kind of look at, it seems to me some seasons umpires struggle more with getting the calls correct. And then some seasons it's not that much of an issue, but I guess it's been enough of an issue where they've, like you said, been testing it out in the minor league. And so my understanding is that the referees would never be obviously replaced with the robotic umpires. But if there is, again, a questionable call, you go to the technology, did they really get it correct or not? Then it does give you, I guess, that advantage. But it's going to be interesting. Technology is driving everything. I don't care what the industry or sport, so technology is going to be there. Will it make it more interesting? I don't know. I kind of like the, when the sometimes make a bad call and the manager runs out of the dugout and, kicks dirt yeah. And all that. Hopefully it won't reduce any of that, but we'll see what the technology does do.
All right. As we go along in baseball, last season we had 2 MVPs who were outstanding. Shohei Ohtani, who didn't get a chance to pitch because he was still rehabbing his arm, but hit 50-some home runs and a lot of RBI for his new team, the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then Aaron Judge with the Yankees, MVP in the American League. Larry, your thoughts on, can both of those MVPs repeat? Now, Shohei Ohtani is trying to get back into pitching at some point this season. Will we see stellar seasons from Judge and Ohtani?
Well, yeah, I don't see any reason why they won't have good seasons. They might not win MVP. There's other players out there. Ronald Acuna Jr. one comes to mind who got hurt this year, but and Mookie Betts. But I think they'll definitely be among the best players. They've been pretty consistent.
Jeff.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't see much of a letdown going into the new season this year. So I would expect, them to be key players again this year as they have been. I think they're, so ultra talented that even a slight drop off is better than many players. So I look for Judge and the crew to continue to be big names this year in baseball.
Big picture, Jeff, and I'll start with you. What could baseball do? Because at one point when we were kids, all of us are old men. This show should be renamed The Real Old Fellas. I mean, back in our day, baseball was king. It was bigger than the NFL. What could the image of baseball ticked up a little bit last season. What could baseball do to keep the momentum going? Is there anything from a big picture standpoint that baseball can do to increase the focus on the game, the sport, the fanfare, the fun for the fans?
Right. Well, I think a couple things. One, I think if they continue to go after and attract the international players, the talent that they're finding and bringing to Major League Baseball, is making it exciting. I think also if they kind of continue to expand the Major League Baseball brand globally by, playing games in different countries, those type of things, I think will have a positive effect upon the fan base. Again, more international, more of a global branding. I think, there's some opportunities for them to grow in some of those areas.
Shout out to our boy, Terry Reed. We both know him very well.
Terry Reed, T. Reed.
Sometimes appears on this program. Terry, good to see you. Hope the ATL is treating you well. Larry, your thoughts? Anything that baseball can do to improve its image?
Well, I think they took a step in the right direction by last year that when they instituted that a pitcher has to pitch to at least 3 batters. I think the changing of pitchers after every batter, left and right, that kind of slowed the game down. The other thing they can do is they could take a page from the NBA's book. The NBA emphasizes their stars. Most of the top baseball players, most people wouldn't even recognize them. Football purposely keeps them. They want you to root for the uniform. They get penalized if they take their helmet off, but the NBA has done a good job of letting you get to know their players. Baseball can do the same thing, but for some reason they haven't seemed to do that.
Well, hopefully baseball can get something back. Anything else we want to talk about with baseball? By the way, one thing to remember, and I think, Larry, you might have recalled this about my baseball experience in Little League. My love of baseball probably ended from a playing standpoint when I got hit in the neck with a baseball. And at that point, baseball wasn't so fun. I still watched on TV and cheered for Willie Mays. But, getting hit in the neck at age 11 is not fun.
David, was
Yes.
that when you were playing, was that Delaware Trail League or was that Orchard? Because I too played ball at Orchard, and I too was hit with a ball trying to steal home and got hit in the back calf and went down, and that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So I understand what you're saying.
I played at the Delaware Trail Little League. My dad would take me out every Saturday morning, and I did have a home run, what do you call it, Larry, when you don't clear the fence, but inside the park?
Inside the park.
I had an inside the park home run, and I also played catcher a number of times with a team and broke a couple of guys' collarbones. That's. So I would intentionally miss a pitch, run, get the ball. They try to steal from third to home, and their leg or the collarbone wouldn't make it. So that's my claim to fame in baseball, other than getting hit in the neck. Anyway, all right, that's me on baseball. All right, NBA. There are a couple of significant games and teams. Cleveland, Larry, you mentioned Cleveland and Memphis. Both those teams, Memphis in the West, Cleveland in the East. Cleveland with the best record in the NBA. I think they still have the best record in
That's
the
correct.
NBA. What do you see with that? And is that a portend something for the future? Could we see those two teams in the NBA Finals?
Well, it's going to be quite a challenge for both of them to get there. I like Cleveland's odds a little better. That was such an entertaining game. John Morant played pretty well, finished with 21 points. Mitchell for Cleveland really had it going on. And Garland didn't play for Cleveland, but Cleveland still was able to win that game, mainly because they have a lot of depth. And they took on Jaren Jackson Jr. and Edey, who actually played pretty well. I mean, that was a well-played game, but I got to take my hats off to Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland. They're just very good right now.
As my part-time job as a Chamber of Commerce person, just to let you know that we have some players on Memphis. Jaren Jackson Jr. played at Park Tudor. And so Park Tudor, the ritzy private school here in Indianapolis. So that's where he got his start in basketball. Of course, his dad was a ball player too. So that's part of the reason why. Jeff, your thoughts?
Well, it looks like Cleveland has been pretty consistent this season. Like Larry said, they've got a pretty deep bench. I think they're well coached. Memphis, I'm glad to see them back. Hope Morant stays healthy. The remainder of the season, never know because he can do those high flying dunks and injure himself, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Memphis, OKC, Cleveland, again, they've been pretty consistent this year. So, it's going to be interesting down the end run, how this ends up looking.
Now, the real story in the NBA this year is Luka and the Lakers. Larry, Luka had a triple-double last night. Didn't score a lot of points, but it was still a triple-double, and the Lakers looked energized. Can they continue this without Anthony Davis?
They look pretty good now. I think they still need a little more size. I'm not quite sure they're the story. I kind of like that team in Oklahoma City, but they have potential that they can give somebody a problem. I think they could get out of the first round. I expect them to finish maybe in the top 4 in the West, but I think they should be able to advance at least out of the first round. They beat Dallas last night, but remember Dallas's 3 biggest players were out, and that was still a great game last night. But Los Angeles definitely looks a little energized now that Luka's there.
Jeff, your thoughts on Luka and coming to the Lakers? And of course, the Lakers are the number 1 draw in the NBA.
Right. The Lakers are the Lakers, irregardless. So far it seems that Luka and LeBron have been able to coexist. I definitely feel like the trade did energize them. They, haven't played their best ball together, obviously, because it's still been a relatively short period of time. But again, I do expect that, there may be a surprise. They may go a little bit deeper than we're thinking, a deeper run into the playoff. But yeah, we'll see. But again, LeBron and Luka, and I gotta, hats off to JJ Redick. I mean, for a first-year coach, and Lakers being the Lakers, I think he's kind of held some things together. He's maybe proven that he may end up being a pretty good NBA coach.
A quiz question, Larry, because I know you'll be able to answer this.
No pressure, all right? No pressure.
I'm gonna pressure you. Who was the Laker coach who had no head coaching experience, who is now a legend?
Pat Riley.
There you go. So JJ Redick. So I knew you'd be able to answer that. JJ Redick is following in that Pat Riley mode, because Pat Riley wasn't even taking that seriously when he was hit.
Time out. Let's let him win a championship first.
Well, I'm just saying. Right now, JJ Redick wasn't expected to be this good. Pat Riley wasn't expected to be good at all. And he became I'm not saying JJ Redick is going to be a legend like Pat Riley. I'm just saying their start is eerily similar because Pat Riley was doing the TV commentary and then got to be an assistant coach. And then when the coach almost killed himself, that's when he was elevated.
Yeah.
So you never know. You never know. JJ Redick might be the Pat Riley of the future.
I don't see them beating Oklahoma City or Denver in the second round.
Well, you know how I feel about the Lakers because our Lakers daddy ain't here.
They're playing well. Well, they looked horrible Luka's first game when they lost to Carolina, to the Charlotte. They got crushed by Charlotte. But they seem to be getting it together.
Right.
It always helps the NBA, and of course I just cringe at that everything has to revolve around the Lakers. One day it's going to revolve around the Pacers. I hope. All right. Speaking of basketball, we had a notable retirement. Diana Taurasi, one of the greatest women players of all time. Let's spend a little time just reviewing her career. 20 years of professional basketball, four-time college basketball champion, multiple MVPs in the WNBA, many years playing in Russia, where she made most of her money, 6 gold medals in the Olympics. How good is Diana Taurasi? How good was she as she enters her 43rd year on Earth? Jeff.
Well, she could be the GOAT. Certainly in the discussion, again, all-time leading scorer in the WNBA, the accolades and records that you just kind of ran down. Very, she's been able to be pretty consistent her whole career. Not a whole lot of injuries. She's pretty tough ball player. I think that again that she is definitely a big part of the WNBA still being able to sustain itself before the pre-days of the Caitlin Clarks of the world. So yeah, I mean, her records and accolades speak for themselves. So yeah, she could end up being, like I said, a one of the GOATs of women's basketball. I'll just say it like that.
Larry, my favorite player, of course, all time is Cheryl Miller, but Diana Taurasi is certainly one of the most decorated, if not the most decorated women's player in history. What do you think of Diana Taurasi's career, her impact on women's basketball, Larry?
Well, I pretty much agree with what Jeff said. She's had sustained a high level of performance for a long time, and I like that she went out on her terms. We didn't have to drag her out like a lot of athletes that don't know when to give it up. She actually could have come back again next year. I mean, and I think she maintained a high level of competition. Excuse me. No matter who she played against, she showed up, did a good job, and she was a factor on the court almost every game she's played.
I mean, she averaged 16 points a game in her final season in the WNBA. I'm sure she's probably glad she doesn't have to go to Russia to continue to make the big money, because keep in mind, many of those 20 years she played during the WNBA offseason in Russia, and that's where she was making sometimes over $1 million per season. She's just a tremendous, tremendous player. And all praises to Diana Taurasi, just a tremendous, tremendous athlete, tremendous human being. And I think she will show the way for Caitlin Clark and others like her, Juju Watkins and others who will follow. This is how you play women's professional basketball, how you play basketball. She is a first ballot Springfield Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
No question. No question about it. All right. Did you guys happen to see the 4-country midseason hockey tournament, if you want to call it a tournament? Yes,
David,
sir.
before we move on, I want to talk about one more thing in basketball.
Okay, go ahead.
They had
No
a
problem.
back-to-back. Oklahoma City and Minnesota played back-to-back Sunday and Monday. Great contest. The first day that first game, Oklahoma City won. SGA scored 37 points. Anthony Edwards got 29, but Oklahoma City won 130 to 123. Then on Monday, they played again. And keep in mind for Minnesota, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, and Dante DiVincenzo were all out. Oklahoma City ran up a 25-point lead on Minnesota. Anthony Edwards, I think he only finished with 17 points, but he made a couple of great defensive plays on SGA down the stretch, and they overcame a 25-point victory and won that game. Those two teams are so great, and I'm a big Oklahoma City fan, and I was kind of shocked that Minnesota was able to do that to them, especially with 3 players out.
Well, I'm certainly rooting for Oklahoma City to do well and represent the West. I wish they would promote better other than just the Lakers, but it is what it is.
David, they're on all the time. I'm gonna have to send you and let you know when they're on TV.
I know they're on all the time, but they're not talked about all the time. All right. Our boy Jeffrey Patrick Lee.
Hey, there, yeah, our co-worker there here in Indianapolis, Patrick Lee. Good to see him checking in.
Good to check it out. All right. By the way, did you guys see the Four Nation hockey tournament, if you will, which is kind of replacement for the NHL All-Star appearances? How was it? Because I made sure to tune it in. I was transfixed by it. I do follow a little bit of hockey from time to time. Larry, did you see it?
I saw some of it. I watched a lot of the final game between the U.S. and Canada as I was flipping back and forth off of sports, but I thought it was pretty interesting.
Do you think the NBA should do something similar?
Well, they actually already do with their mid-season tournament, and which the players seem to be excited about. Not necessarily the fans, but the players that are in those tournaments seem to take it pretty seriously. Somewhere or the other, the hockey fans were more excited about their tournament than the NBA fans were. And I'm not sure what the answer to that is.
Well, I think because of the nation thing and the U.S. and Canada, and of course, it didn't hurt that our new president has wanted to make Canada the 51st state. So, and the Canadians booing the United States national anthem when the game was played in Montreal, and then coming back to win it in Boston. It was exciting. I would like to see the NBA do something with countries. Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, I honestly didn't get a chance to see any of the hockey, so but I will say this, kind of like you were saying, as far as the countries, I did, see and hear things where they were talking about, USA against Canada and, that whole national thing. So I think, again, that's always exciting. And particularly, since a lot of the Canadians really feel that hockey is their sport, and, America maybe hijacked some of that, but there's always a great rivalry between Canada and USA when it comes to hockey. So looks like they may be onto something, though.
One thing to keep in mind, just statistically, I think I heard 55% of the players in the NHL are from Canada. Canada has been a hockey country for many, many years, and kind of the hotbed for hockey. But only 7 teams of the 30 teams in the NHL are in Canada.
The biggest difference between an All-Star weekend, though, whether they do nations or not, the NBA players have got to take it seriously, and they really don't. The hockey players, they used to give up easy goals at one time, too, and they obviously took this contest seriously. We've got to get the NBA players, they have to realize that they have to play more during the regular season, because hockey players don't sit out like NBA players do. and they just got to show up and play and give people something for their money.
What would inspire them to do that, Larry?
You would hope their professional pride would, but I don't know. I'm at a loss where they don't even want to play. You know, you have to force them to play 65 games during the regular season in order to, you know, recognize. And hockey players, they play more games.
Let me ask you guys, because I think you're hitting on a topic, and I'd like to see them be more serious about an all-star game or playing without load managing. Do you think, because a lot of the players come to the NBA at a young age, not fully mature, they're fully grown up? I think your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So making rational decisions or decisions that could help may not be within their capacity until they get a little older. I don't know. That's just kind of a theory.
You know, it's kind of a management decision. Pop started that, and a lot of teams have picked it up, and now it's become acceptable. If people wouldn't buy the product, you know, and I think their product is getting hurt. My position is getting hurt because of that, because they don't know that they're reliable and they're going to be there when you buy a ticket.
Anything that you could see, Jeff, that could motivate NBA players to take all-star games and other circumstances and regular season without the load managing more seriously?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Larry on that, as far as you would hope that, again, their professional pride as professional athletes, you know, would kick in. I know, you know, back in the day when they, you know, the 3-point contest and the slam dunk, you know, you had like Larry Bird shooting in the 3-point contest. You had Dr. J. Julius Irving in the slam dunk, or Dominique or Michael. I mean, you know, truly, if you had the current stars of the NBA participating in those type of events, obviously would make a major difference. I don't know. It seems like, to a degree, there's so much distraction with pro athletes now. You know, there's, you know, commercials and endorsements and this and that. You know, so they're managing a lot more, I guess, than just playing basketball or whatever the case may be. But hopefully some of the, you know, really good players are going to say, hey, you know, look, sign me up next year, or, you know, for the 3-point or the slam dunk. We'll see. But like I said, I don't know. They got a lot on their mind or whatever, and it's not always the sport they're playing.
Keep in mind, when Michael Jordan took off from the free throw line in the NBA slam dunk contest back in the mid-late 80s, I think he was making $2 million a year. Mm-hmm. And he was never the highest paid player on the Bulls until the last 2 or 3 seasons of his career. Am I right about that, Larry?
Yeah, but that was primarily by choice. He was really playing for Nike, and they were paying him, so he was allowing his team to pay other players.
Well, I think the money is a factor too. Maybe not necessarily for Michael Jordan, who took everything seriously, maybe even too seriously. Anyway, any last thoughts as we wrap up our show? Larry, any closing comments?
I don't have anything this week. Just want to thank Jeff for joining us. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, sir.
Jeffrey, any closing comments?
I'm no, nothing particular, David. That stands out. I will go back again. Like I said earlier, I mentioned we were talking about the NFL and everything like that. Again, I'm still intrigued by the Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, how that's going to shake out. You know, Deion has a television show that I see he's been doing, and so I'm just trying to see if prime time, what that's going to look like this year. It's going to be really interesting. You know, it may be a bunch of nothing, but never know about prime time, so that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Just a quick message from Terry Reed, talking about your brother. So make sure that Ricky hears the word from Terry.
Terry Reed, I will definitely pass the message on to Ricky Solid Gold.
Anyway, they graduated together, didn't they? I believe so.
They were, yeah.
I think they were in the same class.
I think so.
All right. Anyway, I've got a closing comment, and my closing comment is also locally based. The Indiana University, Indianapolis, as distinguished from Indiana University, Bloomington. Indiana University, Indianapolis, formerly known as IUPUI. The Jaguars were playing a game against Northern Kentucky this past Sunday. They lost the game by 4 points, and on the way back to Indianapolis, their bus caught fire. The players were not hurt, but they lost. The team lost everything except what they had in their hands and the coat. That's it. So they play Robert Morris tomorrow night here in Indianapolis. Good luck to the Jaguars for surviving that traumatic bus ride from Northern Kentucky. And I wish them very, very well, because that's, to see something like that, to lose your possessions and to have danger with your life. That's significant. So I wish them well in their game tomorrow night. I wish them well in the rest of the season. The Jaguars, go Jaguars. All right, gentlemen, Jeffrey Clark, Larry Abels, and me, David Burnett. I am just delighted to have had the opportunity to host this show with you guys. And for those of you who are watching, thank you for viewing. Thank you for being a part of the Real Fellas Talk Sports family. Good night.